everybody. Today we are talking about sleep during the pandemic. How's your sleep? We need to know, you guys. We need to know. I'm Robin and this is Sonia, and we are Bali Moms on the go. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And today we have a special guest, Julia Mottle, who is a mom of one 11-year-old boy, but is also a respiratory therapist who works in a private sleep clinic. So we thought, who better than to help us understand what is going on with everybody's sleep right now.
Yay. Welcome, Julia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. We're so happy to have you. Yeah, I think with this new pandemic around, a lot of, you had to adjust to a lot of changes. And part of it is, I think the sleeping quality has changed for both adults and children. So can you tell us, Julia, what are the main factors that are changing the quality of sleep, like for ourselves and for our children?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest changes to our sleep would be just the profound change to our routines. We're not probably waking up at the same time every day. Kids aren't starting school at the same time every day. And I think when we have that lack of schedule, it definitely can impact your quality of sleep later on, because we're used to these cues during the day, like at 12 o'clock we have lunch, at 4 o'clock we, maybe start homework, and then we start winding down and get ready for bed for 8 o'clock. Another really big one too would be anxiety and worry. And I think that's, both for kids and for adults. A lot of us are anxious. We're worried about catching COVID. We're worried about our loved ones catching COVID. We're worrying about financial concerns. Maybe we've been laid off. Maybe our schedules, with work have changed quite a bit. So I think for kids too, I think if parents are stressed out about these different things, it definitely trickles down to the kids, even if they can't articulate properly exactly what it is that's causing them stress. It could just be that they're kind of feeding off of what's going on with mom and dad. Depression and isolation would be a huge one, especially for some of our seniors, I think, out there. They're kind of, out there alone. Not many people are visiting. I've definitely been seeing a lot of that with the patients I've been contacting. And screen time. I know we were chatting about this previously too. Oh my goodness, we are getting so much more screen time, I think, than we're used to getting. And I know for sure that blue light from the screen is extremely detrimental to your sleep, especially when you're exposed to blue light closer to bedtime. It actually impedes the production or the secretion of melatonin, which is a sleep hormone. So if you don't get enough melatonin, maybe your body doesn't get those signals, and then it definitely helps, prevent sleep later on. Yeah, I think that's some of the biggest ones. I think also we're not getting the same kind of exposure to light. We're not outside as much as we used to. And
true.
Sunlight actually really plays a huge role in regulating your circadian rhythm. So that's what's, I think, a big issue for sure.
Well, having two teenagers at home, I can definitely speak to the sort of the schedule side of things, because they think, that this is vacation time and they can stay up till all hours of the night watching YouTube or, so I guess they fall under the screen time as well. So trying to set the schedule of tonight is a school night, so let's follow those same rules, even though you're not having to get up to go to school tomorrow. I still have them start school at the same time. So they still have to start school at 9 a.m. just like they do normally. So they've got to work their schedule around that. So that's been helpful for us.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, from both my kids. It's been useful to kind of sticking to a routine, even though it's shifted a bit because they don't go as early and they don't wake up as early neither. But still, we kind of stick on the routine, so it's easier for me to track, and I don't have to chase them. And then it's still tense, why are you not sleeping? But that's true. The routine part is really something to keep in mind. Yeah.
Yeah. And for adults as well, right? I think that adults, especially those who've been laid off, their schedule is a disaster right now because they're so off schedule and they don't quite know how to get that back.
100%. And the sleep experts will say that you should go to bed at the same time every night and then wake up around the same time every morning. And that's difficult to do, but it requires some discipline. I think to establish good, healthy sleep habits, it requires a bit of discipline, just like, losing weight and eating healthy. Those things require discipline as well. And sometimes that's tricky during this time too, especially if you're coping with, losing your job or financial concerns. But I think to weather the storm and for us to have good mental and emotional health, you have to prioritize sleep. There's just no way around it.
You have to take the decision to change that pattern.
Exactly.
Well, and as someone who works in fitness, I can honestly say that one of the biggest discussions I have with people with regards to their health and their weight loss is around sleep. There's so many important hormones that are being released during that period of time.
Absolutely. We see that in the clinic a lot. So people who aren't getting enough REM sleep, they're not getting the same sort of production of I think it's ghrelin and leptin. Those are two sort of appetite suppressant hormones. So if you're not getting enough REM sleep, you're not, maybe recognizing when you're full and, having issues with that kind of thing. But certainly weight and, exercise and sleep, they're definitely all related. Absolutely.
Yeah, so true. Yeah. And I like that you share about all the stress that the parents is stressed and also the children are stressed. So then you're kind of like awake when you want to go to bed, and you're kind of awake because you're thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to be like this, and then what about this? And then everything is like running around really quickly in the mind. And then it's really preventing either like going to bed early or like waking up often during the night.
Absolutely. That is so true. And I think with kids too, sleep deprivation looks a lot different than it does with adults. Sometimes it can look like attention deficit disorder. They could be running around like crazy people and just might be all over the place. And that for them is actually more a sign of sleep deprivation than it is like with us. We might get quite a bit draggy. We might be, have different signs, I guess. But
yes, I talked with a friend during the weekend, and she mentioned that normally she had a boy. She had many children, and then she has a boy who is 5 years old. I was trying to remember how old. 5 years old, and then he's been a very good sleeper. And since the beginning of the pandemic, he's been like waking up during the night, going to the bed of the parents, and very attached. And then it's a sign of a stress. Because the child is stressed because it doesn't have the same routines. The parents are working from home, so it's everything different. And the mom was really like wondering what to do, because like I'm not sleeping well because the child is coming every time she's putting him back in the bed, and it's coming again and waking up, and then so it's a sign of stress.
It definitely is. And I think sometimes as parents, we don't recognize how important it is for us to prioritize our own good quality of sleep, because if we're not sleeping well, especially moms, if moms aren't sleeping well, then that again affects and impacts the entire family. So your kids may have a mom who is exhausted, who is stressed, who isn't maybe coping with things as well as she could do if she were sleeping better. So sometimes I think we forget that, we need to make sure that we're emphasizing, good sleep in ourselves. Absolutely.
So we have to recognize the signs differently. We have to read the signs differently that we may expect to do, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So what about the screen? Yeah.
They're just stressed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so true. And so with screen, again, it's just all about light. I think light plays a huge role with sleep. So again, talking about how important natural light is for us to help to regulate our circadian rhythm. It's like a cue for wakefulness and sleep. So natural light is just a really pivotal role, I think, in good quality of sleep. And I think with the blue light, again, too much exposure to blue light, especially towards the end of the night, will definitely suppress the secretion of the melatonin. So for kids, probably 1 to 2 hours before bed, they shouldn't be on their tablets. They shouldn't be on a phone. They shouldn't be on a computer. I think TV is better than, say, the tablets. Handheld devices especially are really bad because it's so close to your face. And I think, establishing a good routine at nighttime is good, not only for adults, but also really good for kids. So maybe an hour or two before bed, you start maybe having you could have a bath, say at 7:00, and then at 7:30, maybe it's time for a book. And then maybe 8:00, you could have, like some warm non-caffeinated tea or milk or whatever, and do these things in the same order every single night. So your brain starts to recognize these things as a trigger for sleep. Your brain associates bath with sleep, book with sleep. But again, keeping those kind of things in the same order every single night can really be hugely impactful. And one other thing that I was reading about with kids, especially who may be a little bit more anxious, is to address whatever it is that they're anxious about earlier on in the day. Because about it right before bed, they're sort of what's the word? They're riled up a little bit. They're stressed. It's hard to stop that speed train of thought, and then just go right to bed. So it's better to kind of address those fears, anxieties, worries earlier in the day, and then use that nighttime, right before bed to kind of help them wind down. That's a really big one.
Really great tips. Yeah,
it is.
that's
really great tips for the parents and for the children. That's really
Absolutely.
great. Do you have any other tips that you could share to really help have a better type of sleep? So you share the routine, avoiding screen time during the night, even for the parents.
Definitely. There are a few things. I mean, we've talked about a lot of this already, but a lot of times too, it's important to make sure that your bed or your bedroom is for sleep only. You shouldn't be working in your bed, not doing homework in your bed. Your bed is only for sleep. That's super important.
Which could be tricky because sometimes now everyone is at home and then we have to manage the space. So I know that's so tricky. Like, for instance, my son is in our bedroom because it's the quietest place where he can have his online class. But I know it's tricky. It can be tricky. But yeah,
can be.
If you can make sure that the bed stays the bed and the bedroom.
That's right.
So, yeah, that's a good tip.
That's right. The bed should just be an oasis of calm and sleep. And we talked a lot about exposure to light already. Being mindful of screen time, especially at night. We talked about that too. Napping, this is another thing. I think because we're at home more, I think people are napping more during the day, and that's, I've been guilty of that myself. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't have naps, but you should definitely limit how long the naps are, and also not in the evenings, like earlier in the day or early in the afternoon. A short nap's okay. Watch your caffeine. I know with kids, they're probably not getting much caffeine anyway.
Normally, no.
No caffeine afternoon. If you're drinking too much coffee or having too much caffeinated tea afternoon, it can definitely impact how you sleep at night. Exercise is hugely important. I mean, you both are very active, and I think you know how important that is to sleep. And another really big one too is, believe it or not, meditation or listening to music before bed is just another wonderful way to kind of, stop that train of thought. Because I think that's what I'm seeing a lot with the patients we've been in contact with, is that they're having such a difficult time winding down their thoughts just right before bed. People are anxious. They've got so many fears and worries. So I do have some good suggestions of music too. If people are interested, I can send them.
We're gonna
sure,
link. Yes, so we can share.
I would definitely do that.
When I'm a great sleeper. I just am a great sleeper. I'm very proud of it. I worked really hard at it, so I earned it. But on the times when my brain tends to start to float away from me, I call it the alphabet game, and I just it's sort of like counting sheep for me, but I just say the alphabet over and over and over again. And if I get stuck and my mind wanders, then I have to start over, which is so annoying. So then I try not, so, but that really works for me. So I know a lot of people count. So that's what I would use personally.
That's a good one. And then I think too, there's another one. It's called, how do I express it? It's almost like a form of body awareness. So you start from your toes, you kind of maybe contract your toes, you squeeze them and then you let them go. Progressive muscle relaxation, I think is what it's called.
Body awareness.
That's right. And then you do your feet and then you move up to your whole body. Those are really helpful ways.
It's really helping regain more presence and then less in your thought about, but I forgot to do that. And then tomorrow this is happening. And it's like everything is turning. So you really go back to the inner state, inner balance. Right. And
yes, exactly. And for more people, it might just take them more time to wind down before bed. If you think you need 2 hours to wind down, go for it, And
it's a practice too. It's a practice.
Absolutely.
It takes time to go back to a routine where they can figure it out too, what works, what doesn't work. So
those are such good tips. Oh my gosh, I think our moms are going to be so happy.
Yes.
Yay.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Well, any final thoughts for us, Julia?
Well, I was going to say, for some kids, if you've tried all of these sleep tips and they're still really struggling with sleep, I would definitely recommend that they go see their pediatrician, because there is the Alberta Children's Hospital. They have a wonderful sleep department there. So if you think it's sort of beyond the norm, if they're issues that you think might need some medical attention, then the best way to, address that would be to go to the pediatrician and then perhaps get a referral for a sleep study if you think there's something more serious going on.
Wonderful. That's
Nice.
so great. Thank you.
Thank you so very
You're
much,
welcome.
Julia. It was so nice to hear all the tips and sharing the scientific background around it.
Oh, thank you very much for having me again. It was fun. Thank you.
And
Okay,
then
sleep well.
Thank you. Yes, sleep well.
Make sure you follow all the tips so you have really nice quality of sleep. And Julia will be answering any question you have on the Facebook group. So if you have anything, share, ask, and she will be happy to answer.
Yay!
That's
Okay.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.